What do you do when your parents are rebellious and unfilial? My dad and mom's illegitimate children showed up at the same time. Some of them were after my assets and wanted to push me out of the company. Others were after my fiancée and wanted to kick me out of my own home. I looked at my father, silent at the dinner table, and my mother, pretending to be blind as she toyed with her prayer beads. Then I flipped the entire table over. If you're going to make my life miserable, then none of you get peace either. Chapter 1. I hadn't been home in half a month, and suddenly, 2 uninvited guests showed up. My dad's bastard son and my mom's illegitimate daughter had both forced their way into the house. At the rectangular dinner table, my mom's daughter, Sophia, sat to my left. My dad's son, Makoto, sat to my right. Seeing I wasn't reacting, my mom cautiously opened her mouth. "George, the 3 of you sitting together like this is such a beautiful sight." My dad chimed in immediately. "Yeah, family should stick together." These 2 had lived like enemies for over a decade, yet somehow managed to team up when it came to me. I spat out a chunk of beef that I couldn't chew through. Suddenly, the food tasted disgusting. I wiped the corner of my mouth and said, "Speak. Why did you bring these 2 things here just to disgust me?" My parents were already used to the way I talked, but these 2 illegitimate brats clearly weren't. Sophia protested, aggrieved. "Brother, how can you call me that?" Makoto snapped. "George, who the hell are you calling a thing? I'm your brother." 2 people, 2 styles. They were textbook cases of what I'd expect from illegitimate children. Under the table, my dad yanked at Makoto hard, then turned to me with a fake smile. "Makoto and Sophia are back with us now. Your mom and I decided together. They're family. We can't just leave them out there." I didn't even look at him. Instead, I turned to my mom. "This your idea too?" She gave a forced smile. "It's everyone's idea, a shared decision." I nodded. "All right, if everyone's fine with it, then I'm fine too. So, which rooms will they be staying in? Do we need to remodel anything?" The moment I let that out, everyone seemed relieved. My mom chirped, "No need for remodeling. Makoto will stay in the big guest room on the first floor. As for Sophia, well, you know the other guest rooms are all a bit cramped. And she's not used to tight spaces. As her older brother, you should be considerate. Let her have your room for now." I forced a smile and stood up. Half a month away and they already claimed my room. Did you really think I'd just roll over if I stayed quiet? Under their confused stares, I grabbed one corner of the table and flipped it over with a crash. Smash, marble slab, stew, and dishes shattered and splashed all over the floor. My dad and Makoto didn't escape either. Piping hot pork and yam soup drenched them both. "What the hell? Are you crazy? What's wrong with you?" My mom's scream and my dad's shout came at the same time. The housemaids came running from outside, but none of them dared step forward. My dad roared, "You ungrateful brat, are you trying to rebel?" I gave him a cold look. Funny how short his memory was. I'd already rebelled a long time ago. Rolling up my sleeves, I pulled a baseball bat out from under the wine cabinet. Under everyone's stunned eyes, I walked out of the dining room and took the elevator upstairs. The glass elevator let me see my mom's terrified expression. She knew exactly what I was about to do. Chapter 2. Not long after, the sound of glass shattering echoed from upstairs. All the brand new furniture in the bedroom had been smashed to pieces. I yanked the women's dresses and skirts out of the closet and tossed them onto the bed. There were also a few pink Chanel and Hermes bags in the wardrobe. I pulled out a lighter, lit a cigarette, and tossed it onto the pile. The flames caught fast, so fast that by the time my mom and Sophia rushed upstairs, they arrived just in time to see the fire devour those bags. No, my bags, my clothes. Sophia cried out and tried to throw herself into the fire, but my mom held her back with all her strength. My dad and Makoto showed up soon after and went looking for the fire extinguisher. Before my dad left, he still managed to curse at me. "You ungrateful brat." But people should be held accountable for what they say. Ever since I turned 18, no one's insulted me without paying a price. I still remember when that whole supermale syndrome thing started trending online last year. That was the first time my dad found out there was such a gene. He repeatedly asked our family doctor whether I had it. The doctor advised him to stop reading those clickbait accounts, but he wouldn't listen. Eventually, he learned the term and used it constantly. He said I was born a bad seed. Totally unfair. I hadn't even done much. Just kicked his secretary so hard she had a miscarriage. Told off a college girl he brought home until she dropped out. And shipped his soulmate, the cleaning lady from the office, all the way to Africa. He had no boundaries, so I helped him set some, none at all, while upstairs was burning hot. I wasn't idle downstairs either. Makoto didn't have much stuff in his room, which made it easier. By the time they finished putting out the fire and came looking for me, I was in the bathroom flushing the toilet. Makoto's computer had been snapped into 4 pieces. His tablet had a hole through it. His hard drive and camera were all smashed to bits. and tossed into the toilet. When Makoto saw the mess in the bowl, his face turned beet red. "You bastard, I'm gonna kill you," he screamed, charging at me with clenched fists like he really meant it. I ducked low, slipped under his armpit, spun around and landed an elbow to his lower back, then followed up with a kick straight to the groin. I grinned. "You wanna throw hands with me?" I trained in mad dog boxing, designed for going straight for the kill. Makoto crumpled to the floor instantly. I knew exactly how hard I hit. He wasn't getting up for at least 30 minutes. I clapped my hands. Now that the small one is dealt with, it's time to take care of the old one. Chapter 3. While my dad was busy calling the family doctor to check on Makoto, I figured I might as well deal with my mom first. I smiled at her and said, "Mom, you wanted to bring Sophia home to live with us?" She immediately waved her hands, panicked. "George, no, that's not what I meant at all. You know I've devoted everything to you all these years. I even stopped doing beauty treatments just to pray for your well-being at the temple every day. Your sister only showed up because that bastard your father had is stirring the pot again. I swear I'll deal with her properly this time." Ever since I turned 18, my mom had been obsessed with burning incense and praying to Buddha. She said it was to help pay off my karmic debt. I might have believed it if I hadn't seen her detour into a high-end escort club on the way to the temple. That still cracks me up. I always thought my mom had it rough, married to a man who never came home, then raising me alone. That's why when I went after my dad, I spared her, but she shouldn't take advantage of people just because they're being kind. I curled my lips into a generous smile. "I won't hold your daughter against you," I said. She had just started to relax when I continued. "I heard your son's about to start junior high. Education here's terrible. Why not send him abroad? Let me think. How about Myanmar?" Her eyes widened. All the emotional mother-son act she'd been putting on disappeared in an instant. She snapped. "Are you insane? How could Xiaobao go to a place like that? If you want to send him away, you'll have to kill me first." I didn't respond, screaming threats like a gangster. How undignified. This is a society ruled by law. I was simply thinking of providing my dear little brother with a better education. I called over my personal bodyguard. I said, "Book a flight to Myanmar for tomorrow. Also, go to Rose Villa, Building 18, and bring back Luis by. Who knows how many years this trip will last. Mother and son should have a proper reunion tonight." Instantly, my mom's eyes filled with terror. She was so frightened she forgot to cry. She thought she'd hidden Luis well. No one was supposed to know where he lived. She loved him so much that she only dared visit once a month. Now she was truly scared. She grabbed my arm and sobbed. "George, he's your real brother. He's only 12. He hasn't done anything wrong." I frowned and pulled my arm out of her grip, seeing her crying like her soul was being torn apart. I wavered. The bodyguard was still waiting beside me. I changed my order. Cancel the Myanmar flight. Book one to Germany instead. Let him attend the best university there. Then I ignored my mother's wails and walked off. When I went to find my dad, he was on the phone. I wasn't sure what the person on the other end said, but I heard him shout something about someone being crazy. I silently walked over and snatched the phone from his hand. Seeing the name Laura on the screen, I smiled and squinted my eyes. "MS, Laura. Why not come visit sometime? Why didn't Makoto bring you over today?" I waited a while, but the line was silent. I checked and saw the call had already ended. I tossed the phone back at my dad, who was clutching his chest, gasping for air. I frowned. "What kind of men are you? Your mistress dares hang up on you now?" Chapter 4. My dad kept taking deep breaths, like he was about to faint from the shock. It took him a while to calm down. Then he ground his teeth and said, "What exactly do you want? Look at what you've done to Makoto." I had no intention of showing my dad any kindness. I said coldly, "What have I done to him? If he tries anything again, I'll make sure he can't ever have kids. You know me, Dad. I always follow through." He shouted, "You disgrace of a son. You're just rotten to the core." I, Martin, had a spotless name. How did I end up with a cursed child like you? I sneered. "Don't waste your breath. You've done 800 paternity tests already. Still don't believe I'm your son." Hearing our shouting, Makoto hobbled out of the bedroom. Through clenched teeth, he said, "George, that's your father. How can you say something so disrespectful?" I glanced at the fool practically steaming out of his ears. Every time we meet, he either throws the "I'm your big brother" card, or tries to use Dad to suppress me. That's all he's got, I said. "I always thought it'd take two idiots to create someone as dumb as you, but then I met your mom the other day. Turns out, she's way smarter than both of you." I sighed. "So that means it only takes one stupid parent to produce a moron like you." Makoto reacted instantly. He roared, "You met my mom. Why the hell would you meet my mom? See what I mean?" He's practically announcing to the world that his mother is his weakness. I curled my lips. "Why did I meet her? To get rid of her, of course, you wouldn't dare. Makoto tried to lunge at me again. But the motion tugged at his injuries. He collapsed straight to his knees. My dad panicked and immediately called for the family doctor again. The whole place turned into a frenzy. It was getting late. And I had no interest in dragging this out any longer. I looked my dad in the eye and said bluntly, "Kaito's living expenses are cut off starting this month. When you've thought it through, you can restore them." My dad stared at me, stunned. Kaito, he was the secret nobody else knew about. Laura was Dad's first love. She ran off while pregnant and gave birth to a pair of twins. My dad didn't know a thing about them, not until they were both already in college. Kaito went straight abroad to study. Makoto stayed with my dad and chose a local university. My dad treated Kaito like a hidden weapon. Something he kept buried deep. Honestly, I might not have dug it out on my own, but my grandfather told me everything. From the moment Laura gave birth to a child with Wang family blood, Grandpa had known. Everyone has a weakness. My mom's is Luis, Makoto's is his mom, and my dad's is Makoto and Kaito. Chapter 5. Outside the villa, a red Ferrari was parked by the curb. As I stepped out, a woman got out of the car. It was my fiancée, Willow. She smiled like a seductive fox and said with a teasing glint in her eyes, "Got time tonight? Want to come over for a drink?" Willow's face was a sight for sore eyes. A luxury car, a beautiful woman, and good wine. No reason to say no. My fiancée was carefully handpicked by my parents. Willow wasn't just beautiful with a killer figure. She was well-educated and the heiress of a wealthy, prestigious family. To my parents, she was the perfect woman. They hoped I'd fall for her at first sight, put down my blade, and walk the path of virtue. What a joke. Two heartless people thinking they could raise a hopeless romantic. The company under my name was about to close its Series C funding round. And I was so busy I barely had time to breathe. Willow came to visit a few times. But when she realized I truly didn't have the time, she stopped bothering me. By the time I had things under control with the funding, 2 months had passed. During those 2 months, my parents were surprisingly well behaved. Luis was sent to Germany. My mom made a scene twice, but in the end, had no choice but to accept it. As for my dad, he was suspiciously quiet. At the Panda Group's monthly board meeting, he sat just one seat down from me, looking refreshed and content. Seeing him like that, I couldn't help but wonder if he had a new mistress somewhere. Panda Group had been around for decades. Since I took over, I basically maintained the same direction as when my grandfather was alive. Industry first, tech second. While countless companies were diving into radical reforms, I chose a conservative approach, not because I feared change, but because this company wouldn't survive change. No good company could survive being dragged down by a boardroom full of scheming old men with more tricks than pores. After the meeting, my dad stayed behind. Unlike that day when he was hurling insults, he actually smiled at me for once. He said, "George, have you been eating properly lately? You look thinner." I gave him a hollow smile. "If you've got something to say, spit it out." He clicked his tongue. "I'm just showing concern. By the way, I heard from Willow that Bourgeon is closing its Series C round. That Uncle Lee I drink with is from Tianyuan Capital. Want me to introduce you? Anyone who drinks with my dad can't be much good. Besides, I've been chairman of Panda Group for years. Do I need him to set up contacts for me?" I ignored him and stood up to leave the meeting room. As soon as I opened the door, Makoto was standing there like a damn statue. He forced a smile and said, "Morning, little brother." Before I could speak, the bodyguard pulled him aside. I'd run out of patience. I said coldly, "If you still won't talk straight, I'll throw all of you out." Seeing I was getting angry, my dad stopped pretending. He said, "George, so you know about Kaito now." I didn't say anything before because I was afraid you'd be upset. But Kaito is still your real brother. When I heard him mention Kaito, I turned to look at him, eyes cold and unreadable. He continued, "Kaito studied financial management in the UK. He just graduated recently. I was thinking maybe he could come home and help out. He's nothing like that useless Makoto. He's a proper finance grad. He turned down several job offers from big foreign firms just for the family. Things haven't been easy for the group these years. We can't let talent like that go to waste. The GM position in the sales department is still vacant. Let your brother take it." The way he looked at me even had a trace of caution in it. All these years, he's cursed me, hit me, hated me, feared me, but he'd never looked at me with caution. How pathetic. For the sake of another son, he could suddenly grovel and play humble. I curled my lips into a smile, one that never reached my eyes. "Sure," I said. Chapter 6. When I was 18, my grandfather died suddenly from a heart attack. In his final moments, I was the only one he asked to see. Less than an hour after his death, my grandmother and second uncle locked me up in the old family house, kept me under house arrest. They demanded my father hand over all his shares in exchange for me. I remember clearly. Grandma gave him a 1-day deadline, but a full 3 days passed. And my father never showed up. On the third day, Lawyer Zhang brought over my grandfather's will, already signed and notarized long ago, and took it to my dad. It wasn't until he saw the contents of the will that he finally rushed over to rescue me. By the time he got there, I was barely hanging on, starved nearly to death. My grandfather had left me 29% of his shares in the company. Even now, I can't help but laugh when I think of that day. 1 second, Grandma and my uncle were ready to let me die. The next, they changed their expressions on the spot when they saw the will. That stubborn old hag even dug out her 1,000-year-old ginseng to nurse me back to health. My father was even more dramatic, putting on the face of a loving father. He actually called the police and had his own mother and brother arrested for what they did. That's when I realized, no sane person can survive in this family. While I was recovering, my father kept trying to sweet-talk me into transferring the shares. My mother, who was on vacation in the Maldives with her boy toy, even made a special trip back just for my shares. I said yes. Then the moment they let their guard down, I snuck out. By the time they found me, I'd already signed and filed my own will with the best legal team in the city. In the event of my death, all my shares and assets would be liquidated and donated to charity. In other words, if I died, my parents wouldn't get a single cent. With just his 3% of shares, my dad would eventually burn through it all. From that moment on, the Wang family was mine to run, and if I'm in a bad mood, no one in this family gets to smile. That same day, Kaito flew back to the country. My secretary showed me a photo of their happy little reunion. In the photo, Kaito wore a crisp white suit and gold-rimmed glasses, looking every bit the mature and polished man. From his background, it was easy to tell he inherited his mother's brains. He was a top student growing up, and the moment he found out Martin was his biological father, he didn't hesitate for a second to let him foot the bill for his overseas education. Smart people usually know what they want, but it's also the smart ones who tend to overestimate themselves. Chapter 7. On Monday, Kaito arrived at Panda in Martin's car. He didn't care about other people's stares the whole way and carried himself with composure and grace. Even when HR led him to a regular sales rep's desk in the sales department, he was only briefly surprised. I was in my office, having just finished speaking with the newly appointed sales manager. When the secretary announced Martin's arrival, he stormed into my office, seething with rage. When he saw how relaxed I was, his fury exploded. "You ungrateful brat. What did you make Kaito do? He has a master's degree in finance. How could you send him to do that kind of work? Out there under the sun and wind, how could he endure that?" I looked at him calmly and said, "Dad, Panda isn't some game. No one comes in fresh out of school and gets to be a manager. Makoto also started by doing ground-level sales. Why can't Kaito?" Back when Makoto wanted to join the company, Martin tried to get him a director-level position right off the bat. I generously let him in. Even though he's an illegitimate child, he's still family. Better to keep him close where I can watch him. But how could someone just walk in and be made a director? I told Martin he needed to start from the ground level to understand the business. Otherwise, when he gets promoted later, everyone would know it was because of his connections. How would he earn anyone's respect? Martin, though reluctant to see his son suffer, had been in business long enough to understand my point. At the mention of Makoto, Martin got even angrier. He shouted, "Don't bring up Makoto. It's been 3 years and he's still in sales. Didn't you say starting from the bottom leads to promotion? Why hasn't he been promoted?" I blinked and tilted my head as I answered. "Isn't it obvious? Because he's not capable." He asked, "Then why didn't you start at the bottom?" I laughed at how naive Martin was. I said, "Dad, are you getting senile? I own 29% of Panda. Who would dare send me to the bottom rung? If you gave them shares too, they wouldn't have to start at the bottom either." Martin said nothing after that. Asking him to give up his shares would be like asking for his life. He had stormed in full of rage, but ended up leaving in defeat. Kaito and Makoto working side by side in the sales department became quite the talking point. In the entire company, sales is arguably the most exhausting, grueling department. I never gave any direct orders, but the people here are all seasoned players. Naturally, they left the hardest work to the two brothers. Makoto's physically strong, so he could handle the dirty and tiring tasks, but Kaito was different. He was a high achiever academically, and after 2 weeks of grinding it out, he finally broke. At noon, just as I arrived at Panda, he stopped me, gritting his teeth. He looked at me stubbornly and said, "We need to talk, brother." He emphasized the word brother heavily. I took off my sunglasses and gave him a once-over. He'd gotten a bit darker compared to the day he returned, and that aloof, breezy look on his face had mostly disappeared, but the superiority in his eyes was still thick. I couldn't figure out what exactly he had to feel superior about. I put my sunglasses back on. The bodyguard immediately moved to block him aside. What a joke. Someone like him thinks he's worthy of having a talk with me. Behind me, Kaito couldn't hold it in and shouted, "George, I have Wang family blood in me just like you. Don't push it too far." I didn't even turn around. I ignored him completely. Chapter 8. After I ignored him, Kaito didn't come looking for me again. Some time later, the secretary mentioned that he was getting along well with people in the sales department. He often treated his co-workers to drinks and meals. Even when he overheard someone gossiping about him being an illegitimate child, he remained composed and handled it with grace. Many people started seeing him in a new light. Gradually, rumors began spreading throughout the company. They said I was heartless and cruel, making things hard for my own blood brother. Some even went as far as to claim that my mother was the mistress who tore Martin and Laura apart, and that Kaito and Makoto were the true heirs of the company. In the break room, a male employee was vividly describing how despicable I was and how noble Kaito was. I couldn't help but laugh out loud when he finished speaking. Instantly, the whole break room fell silent. I glanced at his employee badge. He was one of the flunkies from Kaito's department. I nodded at the people in the room and said nothing more, then left with my team. After all, I was here today to inspect the sales department, and every sales leader was following behind me. Honestly, I was a little disappointed. Was that the best Kaito could do? Even if he managed to win over the entire company, so what? No one's stupid. They all know who signs their paychecks. After the department inspection, I called Willow. We hadn't seen each other for over a month. There was some noise on her end of the line, and she spoke softly. "I've got something going on today. I'll come see you once I'm done in a few days." "Okay." I told her I understood. Things hadn't exactly been smooth sailing for her over at Lu Corporation either. After all, the only reason she was in line to inherit the company was because her brother had come out as gay and refused to compromise. What I didn't expect was that same night at the Zalin Club, I'd run into my supposedly busy fiancée. I rarely visited that club, but a friend happened to be celebrating their birthday there that day. Just as I entered, I saw Willow behind a Chinese folding screen. Her cheongsam hugged her graceful figure perfectly. It was obvious she'd gone out of her way to look stunning. Every move she made exuded elegance. But the very next second, a tall man stepped out from one of the private rooms behind her. I tilted my head, and Kaito's face suddenly came into view. "Willow," he said, smiling as he gently patted her on the head, murmuring something in a low voice. Willow naturally took his arm, the two of them smiling sweetly as they walked back into the room together. I didn't go into the club. I went straight back to my car alone. Willow and I had been engaged for over a year. She'd been the picture-perfect fiancée that entire time. I'd always believed that shared interests were more stable than emotions. But how could she fail to understand that? Chapter 9. The next morning, photos of Willow and Kaito appeared across the biggest entertainment headlines. In just one night, the private investigator had dug everything up. They had met through Martin. After returning to China, Kaito thought he had everything under control. He believed that someone like me, arrogant, unmotivated, and coasting by on company shares, was no match for him. What he didn't expect was that he wasn't even qualified to confront me directly. He had delusions of taking me down from the inside, first by cozying up to the employees, then by spreading rumors. At the same time, he got close to Willow and stole my fiancée. How childish, how laughable. At 9 a.m., the business department notified Lu Corporation that all ongoing projects were suspended. No contracts would be renewed once the current ones expired. At 9:20, my secretary informed me Willow had arrived. The media frenzy was out of control. Headlines screamed, "Heiress of Lu caught cheating with her fiancé's half-brother." Overnight, everyone suddenly knew about our little illegitimate family member. Lu Corp couldn't scrub the trending topic, so they tried to distract the public by buying another hot search. But unfortunately for them, public opinion was under my control. No matter how big the other scandals were, none could bury this one. The secretary brought Willow in. She anxiously began explaining. "George, it's not what it looks like with him. Please let me explain." I raised my hand and cut her off. "Willow, fulfill the duty of the role you're in." She froze. I continued slowly. "I thought you were smart enough to know exactly what kind of arrangement we had when you agreed to this engagement, even with the deal you struck with my father and his people. But I was wrong. You're just as stupid as the rest. Do you know what happens to people who betray me?" "Willow, while I'm still in a good mood, get out." Her face flushed red and pale in turns. She clearly hadn't expected me to be so ruthless, but she forgot. I've never been someone who plays nice. After a moment of silence, Willow snapped bitterly. "George, you never had any real feelings for me." "Real feelings? How could I not? The truest thing I've ever had is my ambition." I sneered at her. "Who do you think you are, that you deserve my true feelings?" The secretary entered to escort her out. Willow had barely walked out when Martin stormed in. He yelled, "Take that trending topic down right now. Do you know what people are saying about Kaito?" I shook my head. No. Seeing my attitude, Martin flew into a rage and swept all the documents off my desk. Chapter 10. He demanded. "What exactly are you trying to do? Your brother just had dinner with Willow. Do you really need to blow things this far out of proportion? Do you have any idea what kind of impact this will have on Kaito? What people in the company will think of him? And you, getting your fiancée stolen, does that make you look good? Take the trending topic down immediately, and promote Kaito. Look at what these past few months have done to him. Also, make Makoto his assistant. I mean seriously, you don't even use the talent in your own family. Real brothers should fight battles together, just like fathers and sons on the battlefield. Instead, you bury them in the trenches just because you're jealous. How can someone so envious of talent possibly run a company? And another thing, I saw Willow leaving just now. Go apologize to her. A man should know how to be magnanimous. If you keep acting this way, what will people say about you?" Martin just wouldn't shut up. I wanted to rip his mouth off. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. Hitting people is illegal. Ripping mouths off, even worse. I just steadied myself when Martin started up again. "Are you even listening to me? Kaito is so outstanding, can you stop holding him back? If I'd known you'd turn out like this, I should have strangled you at birth." Smash. The sound of crystal shattering echoed through the office. Martin froze, staring in disbelief at the fragments on the floor. If he hadn't moved fast enough, that sharp-edged crystal ornament would have smashed right into his head. You. I stood up, picked up another ornament from my desk. Step by step, I walked toward him. By the time I reached him, his forehead was already glistening with sweat. It was the first time I truly looked at him. He was getting old. The man who once loomed over me like a dark cloud was now nothing more than an insignificant drop of rain. I said, "Martin, if you weren't my father, I'd have 100 ways to make sure you wouldn't survive." He blinked, his lips twitching, trying to say something. Before he could speak, I raised my hand and aimed the ornament straight for his head. Martin shut his eyes tightly, instinctively shielding his head with his arms. But the pain never came. My hand stopped just a few centimeters above him. He stammered, "Why you wouldn't dare." Smash. Before he could finish, I let go. The crystal hit the floor, shattering, the pieces scattering and merging with the earlier shards. I said, "Dad, you're getting old. Your health isn't great. Why don't you retire overseas?" I returned to my desk and pressed the intercom to connect with the secretary's office. A few seconds later, the secretary came in. I said, "Tell HR to fire Makoto and Kaito. They're to complete their exit process and leave Panda before noon. Also, Kaito's personal conduct is a disgrace. He's tarnished the company's reputation. I don't ever want to see him again." I pointed at Martin, who still hadn't fully processed what was happening. I said, "Since Mr. Wong wants to retire abroad, let's remove him from his corporate position. No need to keep the title, and have him step down from the board as well." Martin shouted hoarsely, "George, I'm your father. You can't do this to me." I looked at him coldly and said, "You should be grateful you're my father." Chapter 11. That day, I returned to the Wong family's old house. For once, my mother and I had a calm, peaceful dinner together. At the table, she hesitated for a moment before finally speaking. "George, can I go to Germany?" I looked up at her well-maintained face. There were no signs of age on it. She still looked as young as she did 15 years ago, when I was crying and begging her not to leave. But back then, her face showed only resolve. Now, it showed love. Love for Luis. I found it all unbearably dull. I ate the last piece of rib in my bowl. It was sweet and sour pork ribs. My mom had made them herself. They used to be my favorite. Now, they tasted bitter. I said, "Take Sophia and that man with you. Don't come back." When my mom left, she only carried a single bag. The house, the clothes, the handbags, all things she could abandon at any time, including her son. That night, I dreamed for a long time, but when I woke up, I remembered none of it. Along with what little family affection I had, it was all gone. The trending topic about Willow's affair stayed up for 2 days, riding the wave. I announced our engagement was off. The PR team spun a whole narrative, crafting an image of me as a real man. For a while, the internet was flooded with, "I refuse to be a simp and publicly call out a pretentious coquette" posts, which earned quite a bit of sympathy. Lu Corporation took a huge hit from the broken project deals. They scrambled to fix it and immediately replaced the project head with Alicia. I heard that Willow had been abandoned by her father. The same day her scandal broke, she also cut ties with Kaito. Later, Kaito came to see me once. He looked much more worn down, with dark circles under his eyes that wouldn't go away. He gave a self-deprecating smile and said, "George, you win." His words made me want to laugh. I never even considered it a battle, so what was there to win? He clenched his teeth. Willow broke up with me. You're really something. All my maneuvering, all these months, wasted. In education, in capability, what do I lack compared to you? We have the same blood. So why is it that you get the entire company handed to you without lifting a finger? Why did my brother and I have to suffer so many years of humiliation? I had a father, yet I was still called a bastard by everyone. George, all of this happened because of you. Seeing the anger on his face, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. I said, what does that have to do with me? Isn't this all because your mom was the side piece? Kaito snapped. Your parents were just in a business marriage. My mom wasn't some homewrecker. I replied. Did they ever get married? Did she have a marriage certificate? Are you a legitimate child? If they never got married, then she was the side piece. If you weren't born in wedlock, then you're an illegitimate child. Call it whatever you want. Scream it to the heavens. It doesn't change what you are. Kaito was furious. My words had hit him right where it hurt. He lunged at me, trying to hit me, but the next second, I kicked him in the knee. Caught off guard, he collapsed hard to the floor. I continued. Your tragedy is your mother's fault. It's Martin's fault. Ask your mom, why did she insist on having you, knowing Martin was getting married and she had no means to raise a child? Ask Martin, why did he go through with a business marriage instead of being with your mom? Kaito, who do you think you are, to even try and compare yourself with me? Martin's blood may be a gift to you, but it means nothing to me. Chapter 12. After Kaito left that day, I stopped paying attention to him. He couldn't stir up any trouble. I began a series of collaborations with Alicia. She was all business, never brought up anything outside the scope of our projects. There are no permanent enemies in business. With my added support, internal strife erupted at Lu Corporation. I've never believed in, let things go when you can. What I believe in is, when your enemy's weak, finish them off. By siding with Alicia, I dealt a heavy blow to Willow. Where there's internal strife, there's chaos. The first major incident. A project Lu Corp had been sure to win got snatched away by a small competitor. Rumor had it that Mr. Lu lost it completely. He slapped Willow across the face right in front of everyone at the company. What followed was a domino effect. One scandal after another broke out. They were siblings. After all, under normal circumstances, things shouldn't have escalated this far, but internal turmoil doesn't begin or end just because someone wants it to. With so many companies eager to muddy the waters, everyone wanted to see Lu Corp fall further. At that point, even Lu Corp had lost control. The arrow had already left the bow. There was no calling it back. Eventually, Alicia took over Lu Corporation, and I secured 2% of Lu Corp's equity. Not a huge stake, but enough to forge a partnership. Shared interests are the most stable kind of relationship. That same year, I accelerated the progress of Bojong and successfully launched its IPO before the Lunar New Year. Once Bojong was listed, I stepped back from everything else and began restructuring Panda Group. I had tolerated those old parasites for long enough. Now that I had grown strong wings, it was time. Panda had been declining for years without reform. It was headed straight for collapse, but the obstacles weren't just one or two. Even with the backing of Bojong, it still took 3 full years to carry out the purge. 3 years of hidden undercurrents drained me, body and soul, but in the end, it was worth it. We slashed the long-losing departments, restructured the core, and overhauled the entire group with sweeping reforms. At first, no one believed in me, but eventually, profits kept climbing quarter after quarter. Just as I was finally able to catch my breath, news came from the US. Martin was dead. He had left me 3% of his shares. When the secretary told me, she cautiously asked, should I arrange a flight to San Francisco? I paused for a second, then shook my head. He'd also left me a letter, pages of it, saying how sorry he was for everything, that he knew he was wrong, and that he hoped I could treat his illegitimate son kindly. He knew that 3% stake wouldn't protect them, so instead of leaving it to them, he gambled on me. How stupid, but I didn't care anymore, because whether it's in this life, the next, or even in hell, he'll regret that decision. His mistress and his bastard sons, I've eradicated them all. Assets reclaimed, property recovered, and now he thought he could use that 3% to buy mercy for his bastard. Dream on. My life motto is simple, I always repay a grudge, no matter how small.